Have you ever wondered why your prayers seem to echo back in silence? Why the heavens feel still while your world shakes? What if the very struggles you're facing are not delays, but divine preparation? Could it be that before the breakthrough, there must be a breaking, a reshaping of who you are, so you're ready to receive? There are moments in life when we find ourselves asking quietly, "Is God even listening?" We pray. We wait. Still, nothing appears to change. The silence grows louder, and doubt starts to creep in. But let me assure you, God is never inactive. Even when you can't hear Him, He is moving. Even when you feel stuck, He is shaping. Even when the road ahead looks dark, He is lighting a way that only faith can follow. He is preparing your heart, your mind, your character for something far beyond what you've imagined. The real question isn't whether God is working, it's this: are you truly ready to receive what He's preparing for you? Sign number 1, increased challenges and trials. There are seasons when life doesn't ease up, it intensifies. The road gets steeper, the burdens heavier, and the storms more relentless. You find yourself whispering, "God, why is everything getting harder instead of better?" You plead for relief, yet the challenges keep coming. But what if I told you, these trials are not here to destroy you, but to develop you? Before God releases a blessing, He often allows pressure, not to break you, but to build you. He's far more concerned with your character than your comfort. He wants you not only to receive the blessing, but to be able to carry it with humility, wisdom, and strength. Think about Joseph. He had a divine dream, a vision of greatness. But before he ever touched the throne, he walked through betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and years in prison. Was God absent in those moments? No, He was preparing Joseph, shaping him into a man who could bear the weight of his calling. Had Joseph gone straight from the dream to the throne, he would not have been ready. His trials were not a detour, they were part of the design. And maybe, just maybe, you're in that kind of season right now. Everything seems to be falling apart. You've been faithful. You've been praying. But all you see is more resistance. That's when the enemy leans in and whispers, "If God were really with you, would it be this hard?" But here's the truth. The enemy only attacks what he fears. The intensity of your struggle may actually be the clearest sign that you are destined for something greater. God's strongest warriors are not born in comfort. They are forged in adversity. David had to face lions and bears before he ever stood before Goliath. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading a nation. Even Jesus, before beginning his ministry, endured 40 days of testing in the desert. So if you find yourself in the fire, know this: it's not to burn you, it's to refine you. Like gold being purified, the heat brings impurities to the surface so they can be removed, leaving something more valuable behind. Pain teaches endurance. Loss strips away pride. Uncertainty forces you to rely on God in ways you never would have otherwise. Some of your deepest wounds, your job loss, your heartbreak, your unanswered prayers, might be the very path God is using to position you. That setback, it could be a setup. That silence, a sacred stillness before the shift. The pressure you're feeling now isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to prepare you. You're being refined, not ruined. And as we look closer, another sign begins to emerge, one that challenges even the most patient heart. After the fire comes the silence, and in that silence we enter one of the most difficult seasons of all, the season of waiting. Waiting. Just the word alone can stir impatience in our hearts. In a world that craves speed and instant results, waiting feels like a curse. Everything around us is designed to go faster. Fast food, fast internet, fast success. People want overnight breakthroughs, immediate answers, and instant validation. But God doesn't operate on human timetables. His timing is not our timing. His ways are not our ways. They are higher, wiser, perfect. When God calls you into a season of waiting, it's not because He has forgotten you. It's not a punishment. It's a preparation. Imagine a seed buried deep in the soil. You can water it, give it sunlight, nurture it with care, but you cannot force it to sprout before its time. The seed must remain hidden, its roots growing in silence, its transformation unseen. And when the moment is right, it will break through the surface, not a second too soon, and not a moment too late. That's what waiting feels like nothing is happening, like your prayers have gone unanswered, like God is distant. You look around and see others stepping into their blessings, marriages flourishing, careers blossoming, doors opening, while you remain still. And in that stillness, the enemy begins to whisper, maybe God has forgotten you. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you'll never get there. But hear this, that is a lie. God is never late. He's never behind schedule. He knows exactly what He is doing. The season of waiting is not wasted time. It's sacred time. Time God uses to align circumstances, to strengthen your heart, to deepen your roots. He's moving pieces into place. He's pruning away pride. He's preparing you to carry what you've been praying for. Sometimes we think we're ready, but God knows better. If He were to give us the blessing too soon, we might mishandle it. We might idolize it. We might not be spiritually or emotionally equipped to sustain it. Think of David, anointed to be king while still a young shepherd boy. But did he step into the throne immediately? No. He had to wait. He had to walk through battles, betrayals, and years of wilderness. He had to learn to trust God in the caves before he could lead a nation from the palace. Or consider Abraham. God promised he would be the father of many nations, but year after year, the promise seemed delayed. No child came. The waiting must have felt unbearable. Doubts surely crept in. But God's promise did not fail. At the appointed time, not a second early, not a moment too late, Isaac was born. Waiting can be painful. It can be frustrating. It's easy to look at someone else's highlight reel and feel like you've been left behind. But what you don't see is what God is doing behind the curtain. You don't see the doors He's preparing to open. You don't see the traps He's protecting you from. You don't see how He's building your character, your patience, your trust. Waiting teaches you to let go of your timeline and surrender to His. It humbles you. It reminds you that you are not in control, and that's exactly where God wants you. Not leaning on your own strength, but relying fully on His. Joseph spent years in prison before stepping into his destiny. Moses waited 4 decades in the desert before leading Israel. Jesus Himself waited 30 years before beginning His ministry. If even they had to wait, why would we expect anything less? God is never in a hurry, but He is always right on time. So, the real question isn't whether God will keep His promise. The real question is, will you trust Him while you wait? Will you stay faithful when progress is invisible? Will you continue to pray when the answers delay? Will you trust that He knows what's best, even when it's different from what you hoped for? And just when your patience is stretched thin, just when your strength begins to waver, something deeper begins to stir within your soul. Sometimes, the hardest part of waiting isn't the silence, it's the uncertainty. And that uncertainty is where God often whispers, "Trust me deeper." Remember when Peter stepped out of the boat and walked on water? As long as his eyes were fixed on Jesus, he did the impossible. But the moment he looked at the wind and the waves, fear crept in, and he began to sink. That's the reality of faith. When God calls you into deeper waters, He's not just asking you to float, He's asking you to walk, not by sight, not by logic, but by trust. He calls you to look past your circumstances, past the storm swirling around you, past the fear trying to paralyze you, and lock your eyes on Him alone. And often, it takes a breaking point to get there. Maybe you're at that place now, where your own strength isn't enough anymore, where everything you once relied on has failed, where you've come to the end of yourself, and the only thing left to do is to lean fully on God. But friend, that's not punishment. That's invitation. Because the moment you stop leaning on your own understanding and start depending entirely on Him, that's when your faith becomes real. That's where it's no longer just theory. It's truth lived out. Look at Abraham. God called him to leave behind everything, his home, his land, his familiarity, and follow a command that had no map, no details, no guarantees. Just one voice. Go to the land I will show you. And Abraham obeyed. He walked by faith, not by sight. And that, right there, is the kind of faith God is calling you to. Sometimes, deeper faith means choosing to believe, even when the miracle hasn't arrived yet. It means clinging to God's promises, even when you can't see the evidence. It means praying for healing when the sickness still lingers. Trusting in His Word when your reality screams the opposite. Standing firm when doubt starts whispering lies. Think about Job. He lost everything: his wealth, his family, even his health. And yet, In the midst of unimaginable pain, he refused to curse God. Why? Because his faith wasn't rooted in what God had given him. It was rooted in who God was. That is the kind of faith God wants to build in you. Faith that doesn't collapse in the fire. Faith that doesn't bend in the storm. Faith that says, even if he does not deliver me, I will still trust him. A call to deeper faith often comes disguised as testing. God will place you in situations where there's no plan B, no safety net, only him. But it's not because he delights in your struggle. It's because he delights in your growth. He wants to give you a faith that cannot be shaken. He wants you to know him not just as provider, but as sustainer, even when the provision hasn't come yet. Not just as healer, but as comforter, even when the pain hasn't lifted. He wants you to realize that he alone is enough. Faith isn't just believing that God exists. It's trusting him enough to follow, even when it's hard. It's stepping out of the boat when the waves are still high. It's moving forward when the path is hidden in fog. It's letting go of control and saying, Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you. And when God calls you to deeper faith, he isn't asking you to be strong enough. He's asking you to trust that he is. Because true faith isn't measured by how much you can do. It's measured by how deeply you believe that God will do what he promised. And just when your faith is stretched to the edge, God offers you a surprising doorway, one that starts not with taking, but with giving. When faith takes you deeper, it doesn't just reshape how you see God, it also reshapes how you see others. Sign number 4, opportunities to serve others. There's a powerful principle in God's kingdom that many overlook. Before God blesses you, he often calls you to be a blessing. Before he pours abundance into your hands, he asks, what will you do with what you already have? In a world that teaches us to chase success, protect our own interests, and build our personal platforms, God flips the script. His way is different. His kingdom values aren't based on what you gain, but on what you give. He says, the greatest among you is the one who serves. Opportunities to serve may appear small on the surface, a helping hand here, a listening ear there, but they are far more than just random acts of kindness. They are divine assignments, moments of quiet testing, sacred chances for God to shape your heart and build your character. Before God entrusts you with more, he often watches how you manage less. Before he gives you influence, he observes how you serve in obscurity. Just look at Joseph. He had a dream. God showed him a vision of future leadership and power. But that dream didn't manifest immediately. Before Joseph stepped into the palace, he had to serve in Potiphar's house, and then in a prison cell. He didn't complain. He didn't see those low places as beneath him. He showed up. He served faithfully, even when no one praised him, even when it was hard. And because he served well in small places, God elevated him to greater ones. The same principle applies to us. We often ask for the next level of blessing, but God is asking, What are you doing with the opportunities right in front of you? Are you helping those in need even when it costs you time or comfort? Are you giving generously even when no one sees? Are you willing to leave your comfort zone to be a blessing to someone else? These are the tests that reveal your readiness for what's next. Jesus gave us the most beautiful example of service. He had all power, all authority, yet he humbled himself. He washed the feet of his disciples. He spent time with the broken, the outcast, the forgotten. He didn't just preach about love, he lived it. And now he calls us to do the same. True greatness is not measured by how many people serve us, but by how many people we serve. Sometimes God brings certain people into your path not because they need you, but because you need them. You need the humility that comes from helping someone without expecting anything in return. You need the patience that grows when you walk with someone through their pain. You need the heart transformation that comes when you realize serving isn't a burden, it's a privilege. Because when you serve, something shifts inside you. Your heart becomes softer. Your eyes start to see people the way Jesus does. You begin to understand that life isn't just about receiving, it's about giving. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you pour into others, the more God pours into you. There are blessings attached to service, not because we earn God's favor, but because service aligns our hearts with His. And sometimes, before God leads you forward, He first calls you to let go. Serving others doesn't just bless the world, it transforms your heart. And when you embrace that calling to serve, you open the door wide for the blessings God has been preparing just for you. Sign number 5, letting go of the past. Letting go, it sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things God will ever ask of us. The past has a strange power. It clings to our minds like shadows, sneaking into quiet moments, whispering reminders of what was, what could have been, or what should have happened differently. Memories of mistakes, heartbreaks, regrets. They don't just visit, they weigh us down. And sometimes that weight feels too heavy to release. But if God is preparing you for something greater, something new, He will eventually call you to lay the past down. Why? Because there are things, people, habits, mindsets, even emotions that simply cannot travel with you into your future. They may have shaped who you were, but they cannot define who you are becoming. You cannot step into the new if your hands are still gripping the old. Holding on to yesterday will keep you stuck. But letting go, that's where transformation begins. That's where God can begin to create something new in your life. Think of Lot's wife. God was leading her out of destruction, into safety, into freedom. He gave her one command: don't look back. But she did. She couldn't release what she had left behind. She turned her eyes and her heart backward. And in that moment, she lost everything. That's what happens when we cling to the past. It steals the future God is trying to give us. Some people are trapped by past mistakes, living every day with guilt and regret over choices that can't be changed. But hear this clearly. The enemy loves to use your past as a weapon. He'll replay every failure, every wrong turn, every sin, and whisper that you're unworthy of the blessings ahead. But that is a lie. God's grace is greater than your history. His mercy is bigger than your biggest mistake. If He has forgiven you, then it's time. You must forgive yourself. Stop letting shame write a story that God already redeemed. And what about old wounds? Maybe someone betrayed you. Maybe they hurt you deeply, broke your trust, left you bleeding emotionally. And even though time has passed, the pain still lingers. But if you don't release that pain, it becomes a prison. Unforgiveness doesn't hold your enemy captive. It holds you. It binds your heart to the very thing God is trying to free you from. Letting go doesn't mean pretending the hurt wasn't real. It doesn't mean saying it didn't matter. It means you are trusting God enough to surrender it. You are choosing freedom over bitterness. You are choosing healing over revenge. You are choosing to let God write the rest of your story without the weight of yesterday chained to your feet.
And just when you release the past, something incredible happens. God begins opening doors you never expected. Let's move into that next. When God opens new doors, often in the most unexpected ways. Letting go of the past doesn't mean the pain wasn't real. It doesn't mean the betrayal didn't hurt, or that the loss didn't shake you. It simply means you are choosing to trust God with it. You are choosing healing over hatred. You are choosing peace over bitterness. And with every choice, you're reclaiming the future God has for you. But letting go isn't just about the pain. Sometimes the hardest thing to release is comfort. There are many people who aren't holding on to past wounds. They're holding on to past wins, to the successes of yesterday, to the seasons where things worked, where life felt secure, where it was safe. They're not stuck in regret. They're stuck in comfort. And here's the truth. Sometimes the good things of yesterday can keep us from the great things God wants to do tomorrow. It's easy to settle, to stay in familiar surroundings, to hold on tightly to what once worked, to cling to routine, to comfort zones, to the illusion of control. But God is always calling us higher, always leading us deeper. The blessings He has for you aren't behind you, they're ahead. The Apostle Paul put it this way: forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal. That's the posture God desires for each of us. A heart anchored in hope, not history. A mindset fixed on the future, not the past. A faith that declares, even if I don't fully understand how, God is working it all for good. And here's something important to remember. Letting go isn't usually a one-time decision. It's a daily choice. Every day you wake up and choose to surrender. Every day you decide to move forward instead of looking back. Every day you remind yourself that God is doing a new thing, and you refuse to miss it because you're clinging to what was.
God cannot pour new blessings into hands that are still gripping old burdens. He cannot lead you into a new season if your heart is still living in the last one. The past is over. What happened cannot be changed. But what God has for you, that's still unfolding. And if you're willing to release, if you're willing to trust Him, you'll discover that what He has ahead is far greater than anything you've left behind. Sign number 6. New doors opening unexpectedly. There are moments in life when everything feels stuck. No momentum, no direction, no visible progress. You pray for guidance, you knock on doors, you strive, you push, you wait, and still nothing seems to move. But it's in those very moments, when nothing makes sense on the surface, that God is often doing His deepest work behind the scenes. He's not ignoring your prayers. He's orchestrating something better than what you expected. Because when God moves, He doesn't always do it your way. He doesn't follow your 5-step plan. But He's never late, never uncertain, never without purpose. And when the time is right, He will open the door that no man can shut. When it's God's timing, you won't have to kick the door down. You won't need to force your way through. He will open it Himself, with clarity, peace, and undeniable grace. But here's the problem we often face. We're so focused on what isn't working, on the prayers that feel unanswered, on the outcomes that didn't go as planned, that we miss what God is doing.
We pray for a specific opportunity, a very particular breakthrough. And when it doesn't happen the way we imagined, we assume God is silent, or worse, absent. But what if He's actually leading you to something better? What if the door that just slammed shut wasn't rejection, but protection? What if God is guiding you around something too small to lead you into something far greater? Take Joseph. He didn't expect his life to fall apart the way it did. He didn't anticipate being thrown into a pit by his own brothers. He didn't expect to be sold as a slave or wrongfully imprisoned. If you had asked him during those moments, he probably would have said his life was spiraling in the wrong direction. But in truth, every step, every setback was divinely aligned to lead him to his destiny. The doors that seemed to close on him were actually guiding him straight to the palace. God often works through detours. He shifts situations. He allows people to leave. He lets plans fall apart, not to punish you, but to position you. And maybe, just maybe, what feels like a loss right now is actually divine redirection. What if the opportunity you desperately wanted was too small compared to what God has in store? Think of Ruth. She lost her husband, left everything familiar, and followed Naomi into a foreign land. She had no blueprint for the future, only faith. And as she continued walking, continued trusting, she found herself in the field of Boaz. She stepped through a door she didn't even know existed, and God's plan began to unfold. When God opens a new door, it often requires a step of faith. It may not make logical sense. It may not look like what you envisioned.
But if you're willing to release your own expectations, you'll step into blessings you never dreamed possible. The enemy will try to keep your eyes locked on what didn't work, on what's broken, on the closed doors of the past. He wants you stuck, discouraged, believing that nothing will ever change. But God is always working. He is always moving, even when you can't see it. And when His timing arrives, nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop the doors He's about to open in your life. Your job is not to pry doors open. It's to stay faithful, to keep praying, to keep trusting, to keep believing. And when that door finally opens, you'll know without a doubt, it wasn't your doing. It was His hand. You'll look back and see that every delay, every no, every disappointment was leading you exactly where you were always meant to be. Because when God opens a door, no one can shut it. And when He leads you through it, He will ensure you're fully prepared to walk in the blessings He's had waiting for you all along. And that brings us to the final sign, one that doesn't come from circumstance, but from within. A renewed sense of peace and trust. When God opens new doors, it's not just about where He's leading you. It's also about who you're becoming on the journey. And sometimes, the most powerful sign that He's preparing you for something greater isn't found in your circumstances, but in your spirit. Sign number 7, a renewed sense of peace and trust. There comes a point in every believer's life where the weight of worry simply becomes too much to carry. The constant cycle of fear, anxiety, and doubt begins to wear us down, draining our hearts, clouding our thoughts, until all that remains is exhaustion. But friend, God never meant for you to live that way. He never intended for you to bear burdens that only He was designed to carry. And that's why, when God is preparing you to receive His blessings, He often leads you into a deeper, quieter place. A place of renewed peace and restored trust. Now, let's be clear. Peace doesn't mean the absence of problems. It doesn't mean life suddenly becomes smooth, with no conflict, no pain, no challenges. True peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of God in the midst of it. Jesus never promised a life free from trials. In fact, He said plainly, "In this world, you will have trouble." But He didn't stop there. He added, "Take heart, for I have overcome the world." That's where peace is born, not in perfection, but in the quiet confidence that no matter what happens, God is still in control. Now, let's be honest. Trusting God isn't automatic. It doesn't always come easy. Trust is something built slowly, through seasons of waiting, through unanswered prayers, through heartache, through obedience when nothing makes sense. Many people say they trust God, but real trust is revealed when life doesn't go according to plan, when the waiting is long, when the doors stay shut, when the answers feel far away. That's when trust becomes more than words. It becomes a choice. Think about Abraham. God called him to leave everything, his land, his family, his stability, and step into the unknown. He had no map, no details, just a promise. And he went. Every step Abraham took required faith. And with each step, as God provided, Abraham's peace grew deeper. His confidence grew stronger. His heart learned to rest, even without knowing what was next. The same is true for you. The more you learn to trust God, the more peace you will carry. The more you release your fears into His hands, the more freedom you will experience. Worry often comes from trying to control what was never ours to manage in the first place. But when you finally let go, when you say, "Lord, I trust you, no matter what," that's when you find the kind of peace that surpasses all understanding. It's not fragile. It's not dependent on perfect timing or outcomes. It's rooted in God's unchanging nature. He is the same, yesterday, today, and forever. If He was faithful before, He will be faithful again. If He provided in the past, He will provide in the future. If He brought you through the storm last time, He will do it again. Remember Peter? He stepped out of the boat in the middle of a storm, and as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he did the impossible. He walked on water. But the moment he focused on the wind and the waves, fear crept in, and he began to sink. That's exactly what happens to us when we take our eyes off God and fix them on our circumstances. Fear rises, peace fades, but even then, God doesn't abandon us. Just as Peter cried out and Jesus immediately reached for him, so too God reaches for us. Even when our trust is shaky, even when we doubt, even when we're struggling to believe, He is still there, still faithful, still ready to lift us up. Because a renewed sense of peace and trust isn't something that happens overnight. It's developed, it's refined, through fire, through surrender, through choosing again and again to rest in the One who holds it all. And that, my friend, is how God prepares you to receive His blessings. Not by chance, not by comfort, but through refining, stretching, surrendering, and ultimately through trust. If you're in the middle of this process right now, don't give up, don't run, don't panic. Stay faithful, keep trusting, because the blessing is not just coming, it's already being prepared for someone who's being prepared to carry it well. Peace and trust don't just appear overnight. They are cultivated like a garden through daily surrender. They grow stronger every time you choose to rest in God's promises, even when you don't fully understand His plan. This kind of peace is formed through prayer, through worship, and through the quiet, deliberate act of believing every single day that even when nothing around you makes sense, God is still working all things together for your good. When you finally stop trying to control everything, when you stop striving, when you stop measuring your life by human progress and simply rest in His presence, that's when you discover something extraordinary. Peace has been there all along, waiting for you to lay your burdens down. And trust? It's not about having every answer. It's about knowing that you don't need to, because God already does. And that is enough. When God is preparing you to receive His blessings, He doesn't take shortcuts. He takes you through a process, intentional
and divine. Not to break you, but to shape you. Not to hinder you, but to strengthen you. Not to delay you, but to position you for what He has already set in motion. He allows increased challenges, not as punishment, but to refine your character, your integrity, your heart. He leads you through seasons of waiting, not to frustrate you, but to teach you patience and total dependence on His timing. He calls you into deeper faith, not to scare you, but to stretch you beyond comfort, so that you learn to walk by faith, not by sight. He offers you opportunities to serve, not to exhaust you, but to test your heart and prepare you to steward greater blessings with humility and compassion. He invites you to let go of the past, not to erase your history, but to release the weights that would hold you back from the future He's prepared. He opens new doors, often in ways you didn't expect, to prove that He, not your plans, is the one directing your path. And through every one of these stages, through every trial, delay, disappointment, or detour, He is quietly renewing your peace. He is rebuilding your trust. He is whispering to your soul, "Rest in me. I've got this." So if you find yourself somewhere in the middle of this divine process, don't lose heart. Don't let fear convince you that nothing is happening. Don't let doubt tell you you've been forgotten, because you haven't. God is working, even when you cannot see it. He's arranging things behind the scenes. He's aligning situations in your favor. He's molding your heart to carry what's ahead. And when the time is right, not a moment too early or too late, He will release the blessing He's been preparing for you all along. So trust Him. Stay faithful. Keep believing, because what God has ahead is greater than anything you've left behind.